the work which has been going on in the country component in the first phase. And after tea, then we'll come back, and there were three main objectives of this first phase: to develop human resources, local language technology, and local language policy. And we would have a half an hour discussion on each of these objectives and how pan-localization's first phase has achieved some of these objectives, and also what have been the challenges which we have faced in the process. Some of it will come up in the individual country presentations, and then we can take it generically at a regional level after the tea. So we will, we don't have a representative from Afghanistan, so we'll start with Bangladesh, and we'll request Momit to come up and present summary of phase 1.
Talk about Bangladesh phase 1 and sort of look at some of the lessons learned. We all sort of know what we've done, so I'm not going to go through that much. But the two issues that I'm going to focus on here is successes were basically getting it done, but really the challenges and looking at some of the future. But the challenges is where I'm going to spend most of my time. So if you look at some of the highlights, we at this point have the only research center that's established for Bangla language processing. And this is something that brings continuity, and it actually has added to the work that we've done. For example, since we've started the center, Microsoft has come to us, for example, for Bangla localization. Other factors have also helped sort of make this somewhat known, for example, local conferences, publications, and so on. So it's really something that has helped us move forward. And we've sort of looked at the technology that we've done in terms of development, and those objectives we've met. And in some cases, we've exceeded the original goals and sort of added deliverables that were not in the original proposal. The human resource development, this is basically we start from scratch. There was no capacity. There was really very little capacity in the country. There was significant capacity in the Indian side, or Bangla side, but not in Bangladeshi Bangla side. So that's something that has happened. One of the things that is not satisfactory is the gender balance, and I'll talk about this in a little bit. We've been sort of not been able to sort of induct women in the development team, while the linguistic side has been okay, but not on the development side. One of the things that has happened, at least in the last year, is that there's a sort of a groundwork that's been established for both local and some regional collaboration. The local collaboration has been extremely successful in the last year, which was not happening in the first 2 years. So that's something I'll talk about, why, what the lessons learned, where the mistakes were, and so on. And one of the challenges, big challenges for us, has been affecting national policy. And there are two sort of sides to this, and I'll sort of briefly touch on both of them. So for the first one, sort of that goes towards success, is sort of institutional development, and this is something that we've been very happy with because it has worked very well. We have a center that's funded, primarily was seeded by the pan-localization grant. We've received grants since then, both from the university that I'm associated with, actually also an NGO, BRAC. We've got funding from Microsoft at this point, and there's hopefully we are sort of pursuing concurrent funding from other sources as well for sustainability and continuity. For example, from Asia Link program through U. And then we also have sort of, since it is an institution now, we do have regular students coming in who are coming in for students doing undergraduate thesis work. Some of them are going off after that for graduate school, some of them staying with us for internships and so on. And we've had at least 2 people now. One of them is doing his PhD in computational linguistics. A few are going, and so on. So there's been some sort of future capacity development that's happening at this point. And there's been significant research output. That's something we're quite proud of. In the last major conference among the language processing, our center had 90% of the papers. So that's taken about 3 years to get to this point, and hopefully that'll continue. Now, in terms of technology development, again, I'm not going to go through the deliverables because that's something already in the report. Our original charter was very simple from the technology. Develop sort of the baseline, spelling checker, fundamental sort of do authoring tools. And then also start looking at, also develop an optical character recognition tool. And The spelling checker was done, redone. We've sort of improved it significantly since the first time. There have been multiple versions. There are some integrated applications, some standalone. We've had lots of people are using it at this point, and these are all open source. The OCR was a significant challenge, both from segmentation of the character level, from technical, managerial, all perspective. OCR was a major challenge, and so at this point we have 3 different OCRs. All 3 you could download and play with if you want. And the last one, based on HMMs, is something that's far more promising, and it's actually working quite well. So while we were working on this, we sort of started working on other things as well. Some cases as side effects, some cases as sort of added things that we were interested in. And we've ended up sort of developing some of the more interesting things and some of the utilities that are essential and that have sort of gone under the PAN deliverables added on later on. Encoding converters. We started looking at data. It was all in proprietary encoding, so we had to write a whole series of converters and so on. We have a very rudimentary news corpus that we've used for grammar checkers. Actually works quite well. We have a part of speech tagger that is beginning to show 70+% accuracy as opposed to 25. We have a tagged lexicon. That's something that is going to be very useful for the next phase. In fact, all of these things will feed into our next phase, as we'll see tomorrow. In terms of human resource development, we've had sort of 11 full-time staff over the years trained. We've had significant turnover in the first year and a half, and that's something that did slow us down. There were sort of systemic reasons for it. What we've done since the first time, one of the lessons we learned was to essentially try and grow our own capacity as opposed to recruiting from the outside. And most cases, our initial staff would go off with much higher offers or go abroad. So that sort of helped. We started taking our own students after they graduated, and that really did help sort of the stability after that. In fact, after the last summer school, the 3 new students who were sort of trained have now joined us as staff, and they've sort of at least committed to the next 2 to 3 years with our project, I think 3 years. And one of the other avenues we were pursuing was there's a linguistics department at Dhaka University, the only one in the country, and a formal collaboration with them, which has been very interesting in how the whole process is happening. So hopefully next month we'll sign a formal memorandum of understanding where our students can go do, or our staff can go do an MA in linguistics, for example. Also, they are collaborators, so they work with us to do a lot of the analysis that we're not capable of. So this way, we sort of expand our capacity in more ways than one. And then there's a summer school that we believe was one of the sort of turning points, because now we have capacity that we simply would not have had for going into phase 2. So in terms of policy development, and this is where the big challenge in Bangladesh comes in, there is sort of a hodgepodge of ministries and agencies and sort of shifting allegiances and who does what problem that's significant. So initial approaches, in some cases we failed because the approaches we had taken, some cases the system had issues as well. For example, our collation standard that had passed with a keyboard later on was sort of ignored for the first year, a year and a half actually. But since then we've talked to Bangla Academy and Bangladesh Computer Council, the 2 agencies involved, and we've sort of developed a working relationship where they're actually considering our proposals as opposed to just ignoring them. And the more important thing that's happened is that we formed a very close collaboration with the Prime Minister's office. Mr. Munir Hassan, who gave a talk from the country perspective, is sort of a driving force in that office, and that has helped get a lot of the policy issues on the table. So the policymakers actually have access to those policy statements, and they can look at them before making at least some decision. So I think that's sort of going to phase 2. That's going to help us in significant ways, and that collaboration is something that we really needed in the last, well, it's happened over the last year, something that's been very, very important for us. So some of the challenges, one was sort of human resource, capacity. Where do we get capacity? We really don't have computational linguistics programs, so we started a program in NLP, undergraduate levels, senior undergraduate level. But we need more, and that sort of feeds into this trying to get Dhaka University on board